Welcome to another episode of the 21st Briefing. This is John McGuez, NJ 21st. Start off as usual with Trenton. This week's another heavy budget week at the state level. Departments are coming in again, defending their budgets, their staffing, the policies that are tied to that spending. And again, another week of where state promises meet numbers. Monday today, April 27th, we're going to see higher education and environment on the radar. At 10 a.m., higher education is going to probably focus on college affordability. Is state aid keeping up with costs? When aid lags, typically those costs are paid or passed on to families through tuition and fees. 1 p.m., we're going to have the DEP, agriculture. This is going to be a pretty critical hearing. Currently, the DEP is at the center of the state's climate push. This is especially true. We covered this last week following a joint meeting on April 22nd, protecting against climate threats and the real rules that Scutari is trying to block. And I haven't looked at an update on that yet and where he's at. So expect a lot of tough questions on stormwater regulation, flood risks. Is the state funding the mandates or pushing down the costs to municipalities and developers? This is a big issue for Union County. Union County has a plan, but it doesn't look really well funded. A lot of targets in a lot of towns haven't been met. A lot of that has to do more with federal requirements than state level. Moving on to Tuesday, we have state banking insurance, Department of State 10. They cover things like elections, civic programs, business services, banking, and insurance is at 11:30. This has a more direct impact on our wallets, and it's going to probably revolve around health insurance costs, premium increases, things that we've been covering, consumer protections. So, with the changes in federal support, the question is going to be whether the state is successfully or even able to control costs, managing spikes, uh, kind of putting out fires versus long term. Moving to Thursday, we look at the DCA, Department of Community Affairs, probably one of the more important sessions for municipalities. DCA handles things like affordable housing, municipal aid, homelessness programs, and towns are currently facing some heavy housing obligations. So legislators, lawmakers are going to be looking to see if the DCA is providing needed resources or just like with flooding, setting up high expectations without the money to back it up. At 1, we're going to look to the Attorney General's office. They're going to be talking about public safety grants, their priorities, discussions around policing policy, homeland security, and the spending tied to those are going to show up with dollar figures. Friday, nothing is sort of happening there. It's not unusual to have days off. Usually Friday is a day where, they're supposed to digest stuff. So every hearing this week is going to tie back to affordability in higher education. With a DP, it's going to be about property and construction costs. With banking and insurance, it's going to be about health coverage. And with the DCA, it's going to be about housing and municipal budgets. So outside of that, one thing I'd like you to try to check out is our ongoing coverage on our website about the pilot controversy that's going on in Berkeley Heights. And people that were opposed to these pilots back in the day are starting to look pretty prescient, or at least what they said is. Back when these were being thought about, a lot of residents talked about their concerns with students coming from these developments and not get into the schools and not receiving the necessary support from developers to fund their educations. There was a Rutgers study that said 75 students would come in, and at the time, the DOE indicated at that time that would be fine. At this point, though, it's resulting in a $1.6 million gap in funding, and that's underneath the 75 number. That's right now it's at 60. Part of that cost obviously connects to special services and the like. We also have some dangling Oprahs out there. The Department of Education for months has not yet delivered on the correspondence around some of the questions we have with adaptive testing. And we're still trying to see if New Jersey even has some of the technical validation studies around that. With this shift in state testing that's going on, the performance reports are running a little behind from what I'm used to. And if you kept up with this issue on our website, there were some issues in terms of kids having to take their tests over again. So the whole thing isn't looking very neat. Watch for the scapegoat move on this as the system dropped as the last commissioner was exiting office and this new one started taking over. Another dangling Oprah request that we have out there is on school budgets. We got 2 back. Again, the state DOE is sort of drip, 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 dripping those budgets to us. I think we've gotten like maybe 2 or 3 so far out of the 7 that we asked for. So the DOE is kind of like a black box. They don't want to give you the information, and even when they have to, sometimes they don't, or they make it really difficult. Anyway, thanks for checking in. See you next week.